Hey everyone, this is Gnogart, and today I wanted to bring you a pure Elfnote list, actually, that is focused on cool tune back-to-back. Now, I've played this card in Master because I saw the line there with where you make Baron, and I really like the endboard that this provides, because you're not ending on much. You start playing on your opponent's turn, you get a lot of follow-up using it, and that's more the playstyle that I like to play than just to play the couple negates and then try your opponent can't play. So there's a lot of cool applications for this. So what I want to do today is to show you 4 combos to utilize this card. And then at the end, I'm going to show you a quick screen of the deck list. I can't do a full deck profile because that would make the video too long. But I'm just going to show you the deck list, going to go over it real quick and maybe discuss some of the pros and cons of playing pure Elfnote. So with that, let's hop to the first combo. So let's start with the first combo, which is going to be Terminus, but don't worry. I've seen some people say that I'm always starting with Terminus, so I'm going to do some non-Terminus combos just right after this, but let's just show you the Terminus line because it's the most interesting one here. So let's start with that. We have a 5-card hand just so that we can track hand size, because for a board that is not the biggest, it is also good to see how our follow-up and our hand size is going to be. Here we just have a 1-card combo, but I'll just put in some non-engine here. So Terminus is gonna go into Elfnote Power Patron, which is the standard line, to grab Medius, normal summon Medius, grab Vidolium, that we can scale and use to revive Elfnote Power Patron. And that's gonna trigger the Vidolium and grab the Genodo. If you wanna hear me talk about Droll and all that, then check out my previous video with the Albas. I talk about the intricacies more in depth there. Here I'm just going to speed run through the least interesting parts and do my line. Just note that the anti-draw line in this obviously doesn't make Ecclesia, so we end on less. We just end on the Excel synchro, and that is a disadvantage towards the Albas list. But we have other advantages. We're going to talk about it later. So here you're going to increase the level of Medius, and you can synchro summon into Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, and that's going to trigger these 2 cards. So now again, you can choose how you want to chain block when playing around Harmonia, around Ash, but they could have Ash the Terminus, so let's just go 1-2. We grab our Lucina, and this is going to summon back our Elfnote Power Patron, and now we can quick synchro at any time we want. So we're going to summon the Lucina, use the effect, grab Tinia, and now we can synchro summon here to make Strelitzia, use our turn player priority to revive the Elfnote Power Patron. I skipped a step here, and then you can synchro these 2 off for Crystal Wing, and now you should be safe from Nib. And now you can summon Tinia, and Tinia places the Welcome Home. That's going to send the Tinia for Regina, and that is going to get you Fortuna, which is going to set up the trap. And here is the last moment where you can get your draw off of the Ginaldo. So of course you have to see for yourself when you want to use it. For example, if I had this particular hand, I would probably draw as soon as I can, just because I want to have extenders through potential hand traps. But here we're gonna go and send the Fortuna for our Rhapsody of Madness to bring back the Elfnote Power Patron, which prompts the Ginaldo, drawing us 2 cards. And then we discard 1, and then the Ginaldo triggers, and here you have some choices. Do you want to grab the follow-up, or any of the Elfnotes for follow-up, or what you can do is actually you can grab the Fortuna, because that's the one you haven't summoned from hand yet. So you can grab that back and use it this turn. I'm going to show you in a second why that is good. Let's move this out the way around. And here you can make a Synchro 7, and the easy way would be Dawn Dragster, which is just a standard board, but what's a really interesting board would be to go into Shooting Riser Dragon. Now you can of course go trigger your Regina, but also your Shooting Riser Dragon. Regina is going to come back, and the Shooting Riser can send a monster from your deck to the graveyard. What we want to send here is a level 4. So if you have a Medius in deck, you do that. If you don't, and you are pre-side, you can send a Charmy, or if you are post-side and you sided Charmy's out because you're going first, you could opt to side in Fairy Tale Snow, which has just been unbanned. I don't know if that's worth the spot, but just any level 4 here will do. Let's just send a Charmy here. That is not the Charmy. So what we have here is the level 3 Shooting Riser Dragon, and then if we have gotten back the Fortuna, you can just summon it here to have a body. And now what you do here is you can pass on this. Your hand is 6 cards, which hopefully has some non-engine here. And your board has the Crystal Wing and the Rhapsody of Madness as your interactions, and the rest is very dynamic. So what you can do on your opponent's turn is, of course, Shooting Riser plus Fortuna equals level 9. You can make the Croc. If you want to make it an unaffected Croc, you use the Axle to synchro, you summon the Stardust, and then you make the Croc. You draw a card, and let's say we have this hand, right? We would have 7 cards in hand, and that would make this a 4,500 unaffected monster, which can actually just make you survive some games. So that's an option you have. But by far the most interesting option here is to, once you have used the Rhapsody of Madness, let's say we send the Fortuna, we bring back the Strelitzia, and here, of course, the Strelitzia can bring back like a Tinia. And here what you can do is use the Excel Synchro Stardust to make Stardust Dragon, and then synchro these two for an unaffected Cool Tune back-to-back. So this card is now unaffected, so it's probably going to stick unless they run over it, which they have to run over the monster in the middle monster zone here. So if you haven't used Tinia, of course, you place in the middle. You can do the Tinia at any point, probably in def. So they have to attack the Tinia. They can't run over the Cool Tune back-to-back. And now you actually can synchro whenever you want. So one thing you can, of course, do is just deactivate a monster effect, bring back the Elfnote Power Patron, synchro it with the Tinia, and just make the Dragster here. So you still get access to a Dragster. It's just a bit delayed. So if you're against the power spell deck, you probably opt to go for the Dragster immediately over the Riser. But against other decks, you can just make this. You can then trigger your Elfnote Power Patron, get you some follow-up. Let's search a copy of Lucina, for example. You, of course, still have the Regina in hand. Once you used the Dawn Dragster, what you can also do is it's going to be a level 5. If you have used an Ash or a Bell, and they used an effect, you can go back-to-back, summon this back, and then this makes a level 8. So at any point you can go Omega, or if they don't play into this, you can go 7+3 for a copy of your Levi-Lazable. You can also just leave this on the board, and you bring back the Elfnote Power Patron and use with one of your dragons for a Croc to draw a card and pop a card. You have enough cards in your hand, and so on and so forth. You can also, if your opponent charmed you on turn 1 and you ashed it, you have an Ash in grave, they use an effect, you just grab the Ash back, now you have an Ash in hand. If you play Veiler and you used it, grab back the Veiler, use it again. This card is so versatile, and it makes for a very hard to out board that is very flexible and gives you a lot of follow-up, where you don't have the biggest board that you had in the Albus version, for example, but you have a lot of options and can just adapt on the fly. One thing I wanted to note, if you don't want to go the Axel line, because you know your opponent isn't on Nibiru or something, and you make a Hyper Librarian line, this is probably not a one-card combo, but just wanted to let you know, this, after a negate, is level 5 light, and this is level 5 dark. So at any point, you can then Cool Tune back-to-back Chaos Angel. So that's also possible. Another thing worth noting is that the Shooting Riser Dragon is not once per turn, it is once per chain. It doesn't send a card on Summon from Grave, but you can just bring this back, synchro something else, and then this is a level 7 tuner that you can use for another synchro summon for example, your Dawn Dragster that has been used would be level 12. So you can make something like the Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon. So lots and lots of options, very cool end board. And yeah, that is off of one Terminus. So let's check what Lucina can do. Actually, I changed my mind. I want to start with Tinia. The lines are probably the same, mostly, but there's one small interaction I wanted to show you with Tinia that is really neat. And that is, you start, obviously, if your hand is like this, you start with Tinia. Tinia, set up the spell. And what you want to do here is, you want to use the spell, send a card from your hand, because that means you could also, if you want to be resource efficient, send the Tinia to get Regina, and then Regina gets the tuner. That is one more summon into Nib though. So again, you have to use your own judgment calls on whether you want to play around Nib or you want to preserve the card. In this case, we have a Charmy, so we can special summon the Regina, that's the other line. You can special summon the Power Patron, summon number 2. You synchro these off. into Strelitzia, summon number 3. And what's nice here is you can actually opt to not use the Elfnote Power Patron effect and first wait to go revive the Strelitzia, summon number 4, make the Crystal Wing, and then trigger the Patron. This way you would play around roll. However, you would play into Ghost Bell because they just Ghost Bell the Strelitzia. That means you don't get your Power Patron back. You skip the search, so that is not a good place to be in. Obviously, you can also put the Strelitzia in the middle zone to protect from Harmonia. If that's all you have, then you can do that. If you have more Elfnotes in hand, you obviously want to keep this free. So that is on you. Use your judgment calls on that. What's your hand? What is the matchup? Will they play Bell? Will they play Droll? Etc. But here we're just going to make the Crystal Wing, and here we're going to add the Lucina that we can special and grab a Regina. Sending the Lucina, this is the part where it's not as resource efficient because we have to just grab the Lucina to have something sent of Regina. But the Regina here is then going to summon your Fortuna, which sets up the trap. Trap sends the Fortuna. Grab back Elfnote Power Patron. And then here you just make your Shooting Riser Dragon, and that triggers the Regina, but also the Shooting Riser Dragon, which will send your Medius, and that is your follow-up for next turn. And this is what you can end on. Now you have the Crystal Wing, you have the Sword of Madness. You can at any point summon the Regina, sending the Elfnote Welcome Home. And you can also, whenever you negate something here, bring back the Strelitzia and make your back-to-back here. So pretty much the same combo. We don't have Medius on the beginning, so we don't get an extra synchro, but you pretty much can still end on about this. This is obviously if you open with one starter for hand traps. Just small note how you can do it if you have multiple engine pieces. So here we would open up with Tinia and Fortuna, which is obviously the worst extra engine piece you can have here, but pretty much it works the same. If you open Lucina instead, you just instead of where you grab Lucina, you would grab Fortuna, and it's the same line basically. So again, you're going to start with Tinia. Tinia can set the trap, and then you can throw away your extra card, special summon the Elfnote Power Patron, synchro summon into Strelitzia. Now here is actually where the anti-draw line that I mentioned would be nice, because if you activate Strelitzia here to revive, you skip this search effect, and they bell this, you can still summon Fortuna, get the trap. The trap brings back the Elfnote Power Patron. You make Crystal Wing, you grab Lucina. It's the same line as before. But here, we just go grab back our Power Patron with Strelitzia, make our synchro. Then the Power Patron will resolve and get us Lucina. And then here, it's going to look very familiar. You're going to go Lucina for Regina, send this away for the Regina effect. And because we have the Fortuna already in hand, we actually get us another tuner, which is very important here. Tuner access, generally, the more you want to extend, the more tuner you need. So you're going to synchro 7 here, and you're going to go into the Shooting Riser, which is going to trigger itself and the Regina. This comes back to hand, and this sends you a Medius for follow-up, or Snow if you play that, or any level 4 if you find something funky. Let me know in the comments. So this is level 3 now, and now you can summon the Fortuna, setting up the trap. And then here, because we have the extra body, what we can do is we can just use the trap to bring back the Strelitzia and just make the back-to-back right away. This is going to make our board much better, because we don't have to use the trap immediately to get access to back-to-back. We just have it on the field. It already adjusts your opponent's levels while it's on the field. And most importantly, this board is not super polyable. This is a Dark Fiend, and this is a Wind Dragon. So I don't know of any super poly target. If you know one, let me know in the comments, but I haven't found any target for that. So yeah, we have 3 more cards left in hand because we chose to go greedy with discarding a Fuva for the line, but this is pretty much, if you have multiple engine pieces, you can do the line much safer and end on a very resilient board with just 2 monsters on the field. So that is that. So for the last line, we have Medius plus Lucina. Obviously, Terminus plus Lucina would be better, but I just wanted to show you, if you have access to both, what you can do with that. So you're gonna go, and you can actually sequence it differently, but what I like to do is summon Lucina, grabbing the Elfnote Power Patron in this case, normal summon, and then we can synchro into Strelitzia, and that'll trigger the Elfnote Power Patron, grabbing Tinia, we bring back the paw patron, and we make our crystal wing. Now, next up, you're going to go and summon Tinia. Tinia gets you the spell, and again, you can sequence it differently, but if you want the most value, you can go normal medius, grab your Vidolium, scale it, use it to revive your Elfnote paw patron, and that'll trigger it to get you a Junoldo. You can scale, and then you go Elfnotes, welcome home, get rid of your Tinia, summon Regina, which is then going to summon Fortuna, and this is where, for the most value, you want to use your Junoldo. So Junoldo here pops itself, you draw 2 cards, and you discard 1, and then it adds back an Elfnote card or a paw patron card, so let's just get the Vidolium back, and then you can set up the trap. Now, you wanted to draw first, because what we're going to do here is we're going to use the Elfnote paw patron and the Regina to synchro into our shooting Riser Dragon. Now, we're going to trigger the Riser Dragon, we're going to trigger the Regina, this comes back to hand, and now, depending on what you drew into, for example, here we have a Ghost Bell, we are going to use this to send an Ash Blossom. So now this is level 4, and then you can go 4+4 for our good friend Axel Synchro Stardust, which is going to revive the Elfnote paw patron. And then what you want to do is you synchro these for Croc, which is going to draw you another card, and then you can use the trap to send the Fortuna, bring back the Elfnote paw patron again, and then you can synchro here into back-to-back. So this is a line where you end up with a lot of cards in hand, and you also send a tuner of your choice to add back up of back-to-back for any action. And then you have, from your hand, you have the Regina, you have the Vidolium in hand for follow-up. Actually, because in this case, we would have 7 cards in hand. We can set the Imperm, but let's say this was another Veiler. You can just scale the Vidolium for hand space. But of course, you don't have to go this far. You don't have to go through Croc. You can make a more flexible board if you just end on these and just synchro on your opponent's turn. I just wanted to show you how you can send any hand trap that you can then add with Cool Tune back to back. Of course, it is not the best way of sending it and adding it back, because your opponent has to take an action for you to get it back, so they can just play around that by activating their best Ash targets first. However, I just wanted to show you that this is a good line that you can use if you want to get any hand trap in addition to whatever your board is. So that is it for the combos. Let's hop into the deck list real quick. So here we have an example deck list of pure Elfnotes with the back-to-back package. And this is a Harmonia list. If you don't have Harmonia, you can play, for example, Veilers over it. You can do Kashtira Fenrir. What I wanted to try is if you play Fenrir in the main, you can, in these 3 going first slots, you can play 2 Unicorn, 1 Birth. That might be worth exploring. But here I just have standard Called by, Judgment, and Fairy Tale Snow. Just trying to see if that is feasible here. But the main deck is very Elfnote focused. So we have 3 Lucina, we max out on Regina, we have 3 Tinia, Terminus, of course, one Medius. You can, I'm playing 1 Theorealize here just as an extra starter, because we don't have extra engines to help us play the game. So you want more consistency in your Elfnote engine. So we have 1 extra Theorealize, 1 extra Junoldo. This can be whatever you want, like these 2 slots are very flexible. I wanted to try the Junoldo because for now, like for grind game, it's very good. And just starting with Junoldo, you scale it, you summon anybody, then you start drawing 2 cards is also very good to sculpt your hand basically. And it also adds back something, so you basically draw 2 cards. So the extra deck is very tight. You can see our Harmonia targets are basically Malong and Omega. Malong for the extra disrupt, but Omega, in my opinion, is also very good as Grave Hate. This deck has an issue with Branded. We have tested that a lot. And the issue is that Branded has a lot of resources in the graveyard as opposed to the field. So to try and tackle that, we play 1 Omega as a target, but also our level 12 of choice is no longer Legacia, it is Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon. This can basically put a monster in the spell trap zone from the field or graveyard. Also in the battle phase, it can pop a card by popping a continuous spell on the field. So this has multiple uses. It's just the most flexible card, and for an extra deck that is very tight, you want flexible uses. Another thing you can cut would be the Stardust Dragon. It makes your Fuva line worse, but since oftentimes you want to exile Stardust, get it away for a Croc, for example. You'd have to play the lines differently, but that is an option. Then the Shooting Visor, I showed you that in the combo. The level 10 of our choice. You don't need the Chaos Angel. This is probably the most flexible slot, this and SP. I really like SP for the follow-up though. And Chaos Angel is probably not as easy to make here as it is in the Albus version. Still doable though. Yeah, so that is the deck list. Feel free to copy it. It is not as thoroughly tested as the last ones, but we have tried the back-to-back line already in different lists, and that one is very good. The side deck, Denko Sekka is very nice, Lava Golem, because we don't need our normal summon. Of course, you can do whatever you want here, just standard Purulia Nib. And yeah, so what this version has over the Albus version is, of course, you don't play the Fallen of Albus, the OG. You don't play, you don't have to play the Ecclesia, which is not the best starter. It does something, but not a lot. And you have much more flexibility in the extra deck because you don't have to accommodate for the Albus fusions. Now, obviously, there are some disadvantages, and that is that Albus version, of course, Albus is a very strong push. You have access to Font the Virtuous, which can pop cards on the field. You have a much stronger grind game because Ecclesia coming back and Font the Virtuous replacing itself, and much more late end board, better draw line. So yeah, that is that. But on the other hand, this has also a lot of space in the main deck. As you can see, we have 12, 15, 17 non-engine with 2 flex slots, so you can go up to 19. You can side up the non-engine if you want to. You just have much more flexibility with this list, and this is probably why I like it so much. Both the lines and the deck building is very flexible here. Plus, another big reason for this is you don't have to buy Albus, which is 50 euros. So if you're on a budget, cut the Harmonias, play Vaderus, don't play Albus, and the rest of the deck should be pretty affordable if you already have your Elfnote cards. The Regina, if you only have one Regina, you probably have to look and play more starters that somehow get the Elfnote engine, like more Theory Lies and the Meteors, although it's also, Meteors cost the same as Regina, which is crazy to think of. But that is the back-to-back line. Definitely one of the most fun versions of the deck, because you don't just end on a lot of negates, you actually play Yu-Gi-Oh! On your opponent's turn, which is nice. Of course, we still have the Crystal Wing on the field and the Trap to protect us from certain non-engine, but this list is pretty cool. So hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, leave us up, leave a like, comment down below, and I'll see you next time.